I like this conversation around like ideas, and like how do you cultivate them? How do you understand them? How do you nurture them?
We just had a major tech success. Can we talk about that?
A tech win. I need as many of those under my belt as I can possibly get.
Listen, you walked me through setting up multiple settings on my camera and where to find them. I'm so proud of you.
I Googled and I learned and I communicated and we did it.
I'm very impressed. Listen, I'm not tech savvy either, and the amount of tech I've had to sort out in the last 7 years of my life, 4 especially, so big. Also, I just have to tell you that I'm sitting, I can't move my camera to show you, but I'm sitting in a chair that I just got called a Piper Song meditation chair. Have you heard of it?
What? Is it the one that you can sit cross-legged on?
Yes, my friend sent it to me because everybody's always teasing me about how I sit like such a weirdo. And she sent it to me. It was like a whole thing on like bisexuals. It was like bisexuals don't know how to sit in chairs. Have you seen that? That's like a thing.
You should see how I'm sitting right now.
About it. There's memes about it. And so they like the Piper Song chair or whatever. I sound like I like
we're sponsored by them. Yeah.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
But they like, kind of, I guess, like used that like trope or whatever and like made all these memes about it and TikToks. And so my friend sent it to me and she was like, do you need this chair? Because I'm always sitting like such a weirdo. And I had it in like my cart for like the entire trip I was on, just like looking at it. I'm like, is this so stupid? Because it's like $350. So I was like, this is either so dumb or so amazing.
Change your life. Yeah.
And I put it together last night and I'm sitting in it right now. And the way it had like right now, the way I'm sitting and I'm sitting in a chair, but my feet are like bent in front of me. Like,
can you do it with your
fingers? I'm sitting like in a squat. I'm sitting like in a squat.
Okay.
I'm sitting in a squat and it is so fucking comfortable.
Oh my God.
And when I cross my feet, because it's like it has a little platform that's like maybe like 3 or 4 inches below the like where your butt is. So you can sit cross-legged or you can put your feet like up like this.
Whoa. That's like so
and
you.
It's so I know. It's so comfortable. I'm like, this amazing. Chair was made for me.
That's so funny. I had no idea that there was like a association between like bisexual people and like sitting weird.
I just see the memes.
I need to look those up because I feel like I resonate
like, is that
with
a thing? Yeah. But so this is my very first time that I'm sitting in this chair and it is already, I'm like so fucking stoked about it.
That's amazing.
Anyway, just had to share that with you.
Worth it.
Because normally, like, when we're doing these podcasts, I'm sitting in an office chair, but I'm, like, subtly trying to adjust myself. And I always sit cross-legged and with my feet up.
Same. Yeah.
And it's, like, so
and then you're kind of, like, sore.
When your feet are at the same level. Yeah, your feet are at the same level as your butt. And this is like putting your feet just slightly below your butt. And so it's so much better.
It's probably so much better for your back too. So you're not like hunching.
My back. And also that's the thing. My back I hurt my back recently and it feels so good on my back. Anyway.
This is amazing.
Piper Song, sponsor us.
Piper Song. Yeah. This is like Emily and Sarah's like product wins for sure.
Chairs for bisexuals.
Chairs for bisexuals. Approved by Sarah. Amazing.
Oh man. Anyway,
that's so good. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've bought recently that's changed my life. I did buy these just like stretchy little like biker shorts that I was just like, they're just like leggings but shorts because during the pandemic something happened to me and I can't do jeans. I was like,
can't do anything uncomfortable.
Just gonna vice grip my vajay? Like, no, I can't do it anymore.
It's so true. It's so true.
So those were a win. But I'm excited. I need
our
to look
level
at
for
chair.
comfort. Yeah. So
the
worth it.
standard has changed completely.
I was
Yeah.
like, seriously. But yeah, because we're coming back from like a break for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have a break in content, but we had
I
a
know. I
break in
feel like we haven't, because
recording.
we haven't done this in like almost a month, right?
3 weeks.
3
Yeah.
weeks. I know.
3
I
weeks.
missed it.
I know. I missed it too. I was in Asheville for a week and then in St. Martin for a week. And it was a lot of fun. So I got to see you, but we didn't record. But
I know. And can I
it's
say
good to
just
be
how much?
back.
Yeah, and with Loki, I'm sure that was like a long
Miss Loki
away
butt.
time. It was so nice to have you here, though. It just like felt we like kept saying over and over that it just felt like you were living here, like because I could just drive over to where you guys were staying, and that was so nice. Like it was so nice to like just like have you around for a while, you know. And it was Ben's first time there, and it went over well.
It was. I keep joking. It was like Operation Fingers Crossed. Ben loves Asheville, and like day 2, he was like, "Let's get a farm." I was like, "Okay." Actually, he like when he was talking about it, I like was staring at him with my like mouth hanging open in like utter disbelief. And he was just like, "What?" And I was like, "Are you fucking with me right now?" Because
yeah, like don't dangle this in front of me, man.
I was like, this is too because this is like I will have a farm one day. Like that's like always been the thing. I had a little farm at one point in my life. I really wanted to focus on like building a business, and now I'm like kind of circling back to like wanting a farm again.
It's
thing.
like
now I'm getting Instagram ads for like off the grid living. I'm like, yeah,
I love
keep
it.
feeding it to me.
I love that. It's because it's just part of you. Like anybody who knows you knows that this is like a big part of you and what you're passionate about. And like I loved it because like you guys started having that conversation and we were sitting in the kitchen. You were like, "Emily, I'm stressed out about my hypothetical farm because there's so much to do."
I literally like 2 days later woke up in the middle of the night with like the 3 a.m. like anxious like and I was like worried about cows. I was worried about the cows.
Cows, okay.
And like making it work financially and like I and then I was just like, and it's so funny to me because that 3 a.m. anxiety, at least in how I experience it, it feels so real that like I wasn't in that moment in time. I wasn't like, Sarah. I mean, part of me, a very small part of me was like, chill, yo, there's like literally no farm.
Right.
But it's not until I'm like fully awake that I have the like real life perspective. It's almost like in that middle of the night, like anxious bubble, it just feels so much more real.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're like in a dream
and so
state.
then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can like have a little grip on reality where you're like, don't like, this is not worth worrying about. But it wasn't until I woke up the next day where I was like, wow, that's hilarious. I was like legit worried about my hypothetical farm last night.
Just like problem solving. I always feel like those whatever the subject of that like kind of those racy like middle of the night thoughts are usually like I try to pay attention to those. Like I try to pay attention to what I was obsessing over as I was in like a subconscious state because I think it matters. Like because usually it's something that like actually is like important to you, you know? It's like an important thing.
Right.
And I think it made so much sense that you like through you and Ben having that discussion, it like opened up like this thing that you were kind of like, this is way down the road. And then you're like,
I was like, this is like 20, 30 years down the road.
Right.
And he was like, why? This could be like 5 years down the road. And I was like, don't fuck with me, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's just my reaction through and through. It was like, are you messing with me? Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's something that would be really amazing. It's also interesting because it's not, I don't know. There's so much there. Never mind. We don't need to go down the farm path. But
yeah.
Because it feels like a lot.
Does it feel like a lot? I
It
know.
does feel like a lot. It feels
I'm
really
excited.
exciting.
Yes. I think it
It feels
feels
so
needed
exciting.
and balancing.
I have something I would like, a train of thought I would like to talk about with the farm. I think that so often, because I think a lot of people can relate to the idea of not talking about something because they don't want to jinx it.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
they don't, or they're afraid that they'll like get their hopes up. And I
Mm,
actually have really come to believe that it's so important to talk about it, because that's how you move it forward, even in ways that you can't fully see. I think it's like a form of like manifesting, or like showing the universe that you're serious. Um, and
mm,
so because I immediately noticed, as I started to like, I've completely taken a 180-degree shift in this way, where I used to like keep plans secret because I didn't want people to like shit on my plan, or like I actually tell my students, I'm like, if you have a dream, sometimes that dream's a baby and you need to protect that little baby. So
mm-hmm.
it's like bigger and stronger from like, the people around you, maybe if they're not like going to be like supportive and nurturing of this little baby.
Right. Right.
Um and so I very much used to have that mindset. And now I think as my like sense of self-trust has grown, I've moved into a place where I'm more comfortable and confident saying like, yeah, we're thinking about potentially like starting a farm. And
Mm,
it was interesting because I immediately started sharing that with people we were coming across, like friends from college, things like
mm-hmm.
that. And very quickly I was met with people be trying to like be realistic, like
Right.
saying to me like, oh, do you know how hard it is? Do you know, oh, I have a friend who like didn't know what they were getting into, and then like they ended up having to quit, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I was noticing, I suddenly had a moment where I was like, I made like actually a conscious choice in these conversations, where I was like, I could take a step back and not tell people about the dream farm to protect it, or I could openly and willingly admit that, yeah, I have a fuck ton to learn and it's going to be
Mm,
really hard. But I think the benefit of putting it out there is like, especially in a town or in that area, is like to find probably the right piece of property. It's probably
mm-hmm.
not going to be up on Zillow. It's going to be like a friend of a friend who's like, oh, I know somebody who wants to like, is interested in buying a farm or moving to a farm or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like literally and I remember it because I was like, it was when we were having the ice cream, at the ice
Mm-hmm.
cream sandwich place. I actually was
Mm,
thinking it then.
mm,
Because my friend from college was kind of like giving me like a realism talk about farms. And I was like, and then I started like saying to people, I was like, I know there's a lot to learn, but I've learned in the past that if I start putting it out there and showing the universe that I'm serious, things come to me that help facilitate this dream. And I've
mm.
seen it play out in so many ways. It's why I've started saying more openly, like, I know I have another business in me. I'm pretty sure it like deals with addicts. I don't know exactly what it looks like yet. I know, and I don't know, like it's literally how we found our house, is
Mm.
like just talking about it and being like, yeah, it's crazy, that house is probably not going to come on the market, but this is our house, this is the Spanish house. um and then it just like kind of came to us. Anyway, it's a little bit of a rant, but I
No, it's
think,
such a good thought.
yeah, I think though, I think that neither way is like incorrect, right? I think it
Mm.
depends on where you are, and also like your sense of self-trust, as I said, your sense of confidence, your ability to maintain a certain level of confidence in the face of people trying to like throw
Yes.
shade at it. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily have been ready for this kind of thinking when I was first deciding to like start my very first business, or I was first deciding to be like a freelance copywriter. Back then it was like, I need to
That could have
protect that
taken your
shit.
feet out from under you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
totally. But I don't know, moving to a place of like greater trust that like, no, I think I need to like talk about it, because who knows when I like have that conversation where
Mm.
someone's like, holy shit, I know just the person you need to
Yeah.
talk to.
Connections. Yeah. This way of thinking, it's so funny because it's reminding me of a book that I bought for the girls. It's called What Do You Do with an Idea? And it's like the most,
So cute.
I need to get you this book. What the fuck? It's so, I like cry every time I read it. It's just the most magical book, but it in the illustrations, it starts off just like monochromatic.
It's a
and, like,
children's book.
it's a children's book, and like color is brought in, but it literally
I saw
tells this whole
chills.
story. Yeah. It tells this whole story about, it's this like little kid who has an idea, and it's just this little glowing thing. And he tries to share his idea, but people laugh at it and people criticize it. And it goes through the whole journey that like there was at one point he just like tried to ignore it, and he just tried to stuff it away. And then
We
there was
all know
another
that
part that he
feeling.
wanted to abandon it, and he wanted to leave it and move on because it was too hard. But then it would like follow him. The idea would follow him. And then eventually he was able to nurture it and help it grow and show it to the right people. And then at the end of it, it becomes like the dream goes everywhere. Like it becomes part of the world. And I have chills just like, this book is beautiful. But it is that it's like, it is this interesting balance, because I do think that a little dream that you have could get snuffed out. Like there's a potential, like if it's shared too, or at a too much of a tender place, or maybe you're in a place where you're really tender and not confident, like it could get snuffed out. I feel like I've experienced that. I feel like I have experienced like sharing something with somebody who I really trusted, hoping that they would see me and be like, go for it, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And then feeling like it took the wind out of my sails, like it snuffed it.
Yeah.
But I love like the point that you're bringing up here is that like through like growing and building that like self-reliance and self-trust, you can, I don't know, almost having like that faith in yourself where, like this farm thing, that is like, it's like a fact of your life. Like this is, not up for negotiation really,
And I think, yes. And I think that what's really important about that story from that book is that the idea keeps following you. And that's something that I've learned is like, sometimes I get a lot of energy, and I've learned to like listen to that energy and excitement around ideas. But I've also learned sometimes I need to wait and see if it follows me. You know what I mean? Like it's such an important thing. Like sometimes I get real big and excited. Like remember when I almost got that
the camper trailer.
Yes.
I'm over there like, do it.
I am, thank God for Ben. Ben's like, just like one night's sleep, babe. Because he knows me. And he's so good at like trusting me ultimately in the end. Like he does come around. And he's always like, one of the things he's like, I see that you have like vision. And I need to not like get in that vision's way. But he also knows that I need to like make sure it's an idea that follows. That's like, it's like persistent, and like, because I can get like that. So I think that's an important part, is if it's something that keeps nagging at you, you gotta pay attention. Like, got to. And the farm idea has been following me for decades.
Forever.
So,
yeah. So you're familiar
so that
with
one
that
is
one.
like, even if it's not like a full-blown farm, but like some capacity of like working with the land, regenerative ag. My favorite fucking topic. Anyway,
it is. I like this. I like this conversation around like ideas, and like how do you cultivate them? How do you understand them? How do you nurture them? Like,
and how do you be a kind of person who doesn't fuck with other people's ideas?
Ooh.
Like, seriously, I think there needs to be more conversations around that. Like, do you want to be the kind of person who someone comes to you with like a really like vulnerable, tender, like baby idea, and you're the one who suddenly starts bringing up like being realistic? No.
That is such an interesting response.
Like, I think that, I don't know. It's something that so many people do. I mean, Ben does it. Ben's like immediately like logistics. And I'm like, bro. Fantasy first, logistics second. But like that's something that, because I used to be try to be like, okay, let's get real into the realistic part of it. But that's like can be really damaging if you're not careful or asking permission. I think asking permission is
Yeah,
huge.
like do you want to start like hashing through the pros and cons and like what about this works or doesn't work? Because it is so true, because that is like an important part, obviously, of executing any
Yes.
ideas. You are going to have to like plan and get, do all that logistical work. And there are people that exist in that like real dreamy state easier, and people who like are
Mm-hmm.
in the more realist state. But it's so true. I mean, Sarah, like I cannot even tell you how many times I have like presented an idea, and it was squashed before it even took its first breath, by that,
It's not
by that.
okay. I
Yeah.
don't think that's
And
okay, or right, or nice, or kind, or fun, or or like good for the world.
mhm.
Like, I think it's important for us to all look at ourselves and be like, do I want to be a dream squasher, or do I want to be a dream, like, I don't know, I want to
Nurturer.
like
Yeah. Tender.
tender,
Yeah.
like, yeah, do I want
Yes.
to be somebody who stamps out people's flames, or do I want to be somebody who like blows a little air on it to see if it like catches hold? Like, I
hmm
don't know.
What do you think
I
the
used to be
energy?
somebody who stamps it out, though. Like, I
I'm
have to
curious,
say,
like
like,
what was the
I've
energy
definitely
behind
been.
that? Like, was it like
I think for
concern?
most people, yes. I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, and I tell people that, again, this is such a common conversation among, like, when I'm working with like newbie freelancers who are starting their very first business, is that more often than not, and I think this is true for me, it's just like fear for the
hmm
person that you care about,
hmm
and like not wanting to see them have their heart broken by getting their hopes to like up, or quite frankly, we all have people in our life who does this often and doesn't follow through. But the thing is like, to just assume that they're not going to follow through is so harmful.
mm
Even if their past behavior like indicates that,
hmm
it's like what's the fucking point, ultimately? Like,
mm-hmm.
the potential harm is so much greater if you are the one who's like stamping out ideas, I think. What? So then they like get their hopes up because they got like dreamed a little bit too big? Like,
Right. And so many people,
that's
like,
not
so many
that's
people
not like that
struggle.
harmful.
Right. So many people struggle with even giving themselves permission to have the dream, let alone to say the dream. and
I
and
know.
for the most part, like for me, whenever I'm like sharing like a little baby idea, what I'm looking for, I truly am looking for validation, because like, especially if it's like at the intimate early stages, it is very vulnerable to do that, and I'm really looking for support. And at a time in my life where I struggled around like self-validation, around being like, this can be important just because it's important to me, and I needed somebody else to like help me do that too, which was kind of codependent, and I've worked on that. But yeah, and then there's this other element I feel like that I've come up against, where if my idea is not in alignment with somebody's value systems, that it can often be a reason to like that it gets snuffed out, because this thing is not super important
Yeah,
to
because
that person.
you're right, because you're
Mm,
filtering your ideas, your values, your like principles, your perspectives, and then you're literally giving them advice based on what you think is best for you ultimately, if unless you're
exactly.
like checking that, which is
Yeah.
like what most people do, and most people give well-meaning but fear-based advice that's like based in like not, and most of the time, um it's from people who are not knowledgeable about what you're talking about. Like, truly, I
Mm,
always encourage people, I'm like, the number one question you have to ask yourself when you're doing this is, has this person been where I'm trying to go? Because if they haven't started their own freelance business, if they haven't started a farm, they're literally giving you advice based on like zero knowledge.
mm-hmm,
Like, and you're
mm-hmm,
giving them the power to like, to give you advice, or just like have any sort of say from a
mm-hmm.
place of literally like not knowing what the fuck they're talking about. Like,
Mm,
why do we do that? And what, just
right.
because they're your parent, just because they're your sibling, just because they're your friend? But they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Like, you wouldn't
Right.
like go to them for medical advice. You wouldn't go for, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, come on now. Like, why are we not like keeping that at the forefront of our mind? I think it's so,
Yes.
so important because more often than not, if you go to someone who has experience from that place, they are not going to dissuade you because they've done it. They're usually like, if they've been where you've been.
They've
So if I
been
go
where
to
you've
an
been.
actual like
Yes.
farmer and tell them that, they're like, I mean, I'm sure some people, if they like hate what they've ended up doing because of it and they're like miserable, might.
Right.
But I think more often than not, they're gonna be like, hell yeah, here are the biggest lessons I've learned. Definitely take this into consideration. But they're sure as hell not gonna be like, no, don't do that. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. That's such
Because
like
people like, yeah. I don't know. Sorry, I'm all fired up.
no, I love it. It's such like it's you like highlighted like the value we misplace value on certain people's opinions that really isn't like serving us well, you know, just because and now of course it's like you want your partner to be supporting you, you know, and like there is like an element of it. I think it's very human to like want your parents' support too, right? Like, but that's such a good question to ask. You're like, does that it really matter though? Like this opinion, like, is this an educated like opinion from this person?
Yes,
or is this
just an educated opinion?
Yeah.
That was something that really helped me in kind of, so when I first started like really growing my online presence, and I would just you're like, when you grow your online presence, like you open yourself up to just like random people saying like fucked up things. It's just like a fact. It's so unfortunate, but it's so true. And I was like interested in like moving beyond that. And I can't remember where I read it or how it was said, but it was something along the lines of like, the people criticizing you, especially like in the comments online, are not the people who are like, who have been where you're trying to go. You know what I mean? They're not the people who have succeeded at exactly what you're trying to do, or like even like get it. Like they're the people who have never tried.
Yeah.
They're the people who have never like done the brave thing. And for some reason, like that really hit home. And it was like almost in an instant that like suddenly like comments online, like literally I just see pain. And sometimes they make me like roll my eyes, but more often than not, I'm like, man, you are like the person is, you're just like not gonna get the criticism and the like taking the wind out of somebody's sails from the person who has actually like built what you're trying to build. Like you're just not. I mean, they might give you some hard, realistic advice where it's like, this is not easy, but like they're not gonna be like it's impossible because they have fucking done it themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, protect your dreams.
Yeah, and be like selective with like whose critique and whose opinion really matters in conjunction with your dream, right? And I really liked a point that you made when you were talking about the farm in the beginning, where you were saying how you were saying something to the effect of how like some people don't even dare to have the dream because they're afraid of losing it, or they're afraid of not being able, they're like afraid
of saying it out loud,
getting their hopes up. That's what you said. Like there's so many people won't even say it because they don't want to get their hopes up, they don't want to jinx it. And that's such an interesting thought, right? Because it's this, I actually was recently talking to a friend and she was mentioning to me, I think this is like something that Brene Brown talks about, but it's this idea of dress rehearsing tragedy, where you are just practicing being heartbroken. You're just practicing being disappointed.
I do this.
Right?
Oh, I think everyone does this sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Like, and hearing that like phrase, I was just like, there's like a name for it, because like I do this. Like I you know, you are afraid to want something so much you're afraid of the potential for pain and having, I mean, in relationship like that, I mean, everybody is like experiencing that fear in relationship. Like if you're falling in love with somebody, like all the fear that's there, and like and then like even to get over to allow yourself to be in that space or to experience love with somebody. But yeah, that idea of dress rehearsing tragedy and literally manufacturing pain that holds you back, and that keeps you from ever even trying or saying the thing or dreaming about the thing.
I know. Ugh, it just makes me, I don't know. Whenever I hear this, because I mean, I feel like I surround myself with these conversations with people who have the dream and are constantly like, oh, but nobody gets it. And I'm like, so I got to talk to people who have like, who get it, who are either have been where you're trying to go or are trying to like build the same thing. It's essential, I think, to success. That's why like masterminds and mentorships are just like blowing up, because that's like, and that's what I get out of like masterminds and stuff like that, is to be surrounded by people who are like building things and like think bigger and I don't know, say the thing that sounds crazy to like most. Like it's so important. It's so important for like ideas to be fostered and nurtured and cultivated and
like a safe place. Like like the thing is to like have a safe place to have a shitty idea, or to have like a stupid idea, or to have an idea that isn't quite right, but like being allowed to try,
Not calling your slime idea shitty, but when you came to me with your slime idea, I wasn't as good at holding space for people's ideas. In fact, I feel like I learned this a lot from you. Because you are so good at holding space for people's ideas, including my own. And I've been on the receiving end and have seen how like helpful that is. And so so when you came to me and being like, I'm going to make slime and sell it online, I remember, so it's such a vivid like moment for me, because I was like, I'm not going to be that shitty person and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, I don't want to be the person who like stamps out ideas with realism, quote unquote realism, anymore. Like it was like in that time period was when I was like thinking about this, and deciding that I wanted to like be different and not be the realist or whatever. That's like what I called it.
Yeah.
But really you're just a fucking Debbie Downer. Under the guise of being logical and realistic, you're actually just like causing
raining
harm
on people's parades. Yeah.
And I but like that was like an important moment for me, because I was just like, I don't know, I just remember being supportive, but it being a practice, because it didn't feel like, it was like, I was like,
it was so silly. It was hard for me to talk to anybody about it because it was so ridiculous. And then it was working and it was like turning into a thing. And then it was still hard to talk to people about it because they're like, what? What do you do with all your time? And it was so funny about that. Like, it was so interesting about that, because like the motivation behind creating that, the motivation behind that idea was literally like trying to like keep my head above water in like the depression following my mom's death. Like it was, my slime business was like necessary. It was, and it's so weird that it manifested like that. Like other people like work out or like do other things. I don't know, but like I did the slime thing, but it was so interesting because like as much as I like wanted people's support and wanted like approval for that, it was also like, this is just what I'm doing anyways. I was already making slime because I was already just like doing it and playing with my girls with it. And I was just like, for whatever reason, it was so soothing and sensory. And I was just like, this is what I have to do.
It's
so
like,
crazy.
I will forever bring it up because it's still just like one of my favorite stories. And for me, it was an important shift of being like, what do I want to like, I knew you were in a delicate place, so it wasn't like
right.
You know, what am I gonna do? Just like shit on your like little like slimy bit of
my
happiness,
tiny shred of happiness. I know. It was so funny. And it's so,
Um,
okay, so here's this other thought that I have, because I feel like this happens to me. Sometimes I feel like I get ideas for other people, like ideas that aren't for me
oh,
to
for
execute,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
interesting because sometimes it's confusing, because sometimes I think, oh, this is my idea. And I've had to get good at being like, just like figuring out how to like share stuff like this. Like I had this thought for you. You do it with it what you want, but I just like I saw a connecting
Do you
point.
have an example?
Hmm.
I feel like you've done that for me. I just can't think of when. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I know I've done it in the like lots of like very intimate, like kind of more intimate ways,
Uh-huh.
like with people who've been struggling emotionally or struggling through like hard times in their life, like having an idea around, let's go do this thing, and I think it's going to help you like break through like this block or whatever.
Mm,
I have some examples in my head, but they're not examples I want to share on the
right, right.
podcast.
They're very
They're
because they're
yeah, they're
very
very
personal.
personal, but um yeah, and just
No,
like
I that makes sense. That makes sense.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so do you share like how do you go about sharing them?
This is an interesting thought, because I do feel like I've experienced my ideas getting shot down a ton. Unfortunately, like, and I've been able to joke about it, like, and get to a place of having better humor, but it almost was like comically getting to a point where like I would have an idea, it would get shot down, and then a little bit of time would pass and the idea would be implemented and it would be all of a sudden a good idea later, but it was never like accredited to me. And so
Dude, that's
yeah.
fucked up.
Yeah, and so, and it just is like it was something that like at the time I was able to just like joke about, like, oh, here it's happening again. But it did, like, I do feel
Mhm.
like I have a little bit of like around sharing that, because I've experienced so much of the initial response being, that's stupid, and then later on being like, oh no, that's actually brilliant. And I was like, I fucking know. Like it is. So I don't
That
know.
is that is a really shitty feeling when you
Yeah.
go from like having an idea invalidated and then suddenly it's like somebody else's like good idea. That sucks.
Yeah, it
That's a
sucks
big
so
shitty
much.
feeling.
So,
Listen, I think we need to
yeah,
have more respect for people's ideas and dreams in general.
respect.
Like
Like
this is
just
a
being
call to like
respectful. Yeah.
just being like it's because they're very tender. They're
They're
vulnerable,
delicate.
right?
They're delicate. Yes,
It's a
yes.
vulnerable thing. And
Mhm.
also when somebody shares an idea with you, like that's an honor. Treat it as
Mhm.
such. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
um I don't know. I just don't think that we give enough thought to um harm that we can like potentially cause
Yeah.
people. And
And
this
being
is like an
dismissive.
area where
Yes.
I definitely have caused harm. All like, and I made like a conscious choice. Like I said, I made a choice where I was like, the fuck's the point of being the like realist? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're just a dream squasher.
Yeah. And kind of going back to that, because you had mentioned like the people that have all the ideas and don't follow through. I kind of like identify with that, because there was like a phase where I felt like my ideas were getting shot down so much that I would just like keep switching different idea, different idea, different idea. But none of them would ever realize, because I was putting too much weight on approval of like the people I was sharing them with. And so I do think the people that get stuck in that thing, it might be good to ask yourself, like, where
It
can you
all
give yourself permission to do the thing?
Well,
And
where can you grow? I really think it's self trust. Where can you
yes.
grow your sense of self trust?
Mm,
Because I think that that's why you're seeking approval because you don't trust yourself,
right,
right?
right. Hmm.
And so, I mean, it's all. I feel like it like all comes down to self trust, and that can be something you grow. Because I know, I talk to people oftentimes where they'll say things like, "Yeah, well, but I don't tend to follow through. I gotta like run it by so and so because like literally I don't trust myself."
Hmm.
And it's just like, okay, well, if you're saying things like I'm the kind of person who doesn't follow through, how the fuck can you push back on that?
Right.
Like,
you've identified yourself as that.
you're literally by even saying I'm the kind of person who doesn't follow through or I'm indecisive, you're boxing yourself in a corner. You can say things like, I'm working on only chasing dream, or I'm working on seeing if a dream continues to follow me, and then if it does, like practicing like implementing. I mean, you know, if you say you're indecisive, like I'm practicing being more decisive. um I don't know, it was so funny. It reminds me of that woman who I just like love, like that Dr. Becky. She's like a child psychologist.
Yes, she's, man, I wish I had her 10 years ago, but yes.
I fucking love this woman. Like all of her advice for children is like just as good advice for us. Like everything can
across
be
the
like
board.
And she like had this and all of her videos are so like simple and short and just like nice little like nuggets of just like ooh, so good. Um and one of them I just like cracked up because she was like, you want to know the best way, you have a child who's a picky eater, you know, the best way that you can like, you know, help them with that and like be less picky, stop calling them a picky eater. Stop saying that they're a picky eater like to their face, like, oh, so and so, they're a picky eater, they're always picky, they don't like blah blah blah, like. And you're just like, when she was saying it, I like laughed out loud because I was like, yeah, it's like the same fucking thing for adults, man. Stop being like, you're indecisive, you don't follow through on things. Like, you're just strengthening the like pathway in the brain that like you have that tells yourself, this is how I am. I'm not dynamic. I'm rigid. I can't change. And we know it's bullshit. Like, we just know we are so dynamic. We're so flexible. And it starts like the number one belief you have to like tap into that incredible thing that makes us human is the belief that you can change.
Yeah.
And if you think that you're always going to stay the same, you're going to fucking always stay the same. Like, I don't know. I'm so fired up right now.
I love it. It is
what happened this morning.
Yeah,
we're just like, everybody, let's be easier on ourselves and like let our dreams flourish. Who the fuck cares if it doesn't follow through? Like, or it doesn't like come to fruition. It was still a beautiful dream, and I enjoyed talking about it. Like,
there's so much there just around like what is that internal dialogue? Is it, I can't because of this, because of that, because of whatever the excuse, I can't follow through with this dream, I can't have this dream, I can't hope for it? Or is it like, I can maybe try, like being a little brave, I can practice, I can, you know, because like we have so much, we have this like automatic assumption of like, you just like have to go from zero to successful without like all the steps in between of like trying and failing and this way, that way, you know, and figuring it out and giving yourself permission to figure it out, right?
This is our dream pep talk.
Yeah.
That's how we got there. I don't know. In fact, I want to just say that sometimes I have found in life one of the best things you can do for situations that are uncomfortable is to call them out.
Yeah.
So like, for example, when you're like, want to hang out with a new person that's like, you know, making friends as an adult, right? And just being like, you know, this is weird trying to make friends as an adult. I feel like a little kid right now being like, do you want to have a play date? Like, just call that out, because then it's like funny and cute and relatable, right? It's the same thing with the dream, right? So when I had people being like, oh, farms are hard, blah, 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 I literally was like, this is, and I felt myself getting uncomfortable a little bit, like just being like, oh no, what if I can't do it? The cows, the goats, are they okay? Like, and I said, you know, I've moved into kind of a phase in my life, or a way of doing things in my life, where like, even though things are ideas are half baked, I don't keep them secret anymore until they're like fully alive, because I've realized that when I put ideas out there, that's how things come to me that help me move forward, i.e. somebody telling me, oh, I just found out about the perfect piece of land. you know, or I have a friend who like has this particular type of expertise in farming. The algorithm started sending me courses on like
Right.
off the grid business
Yeah.
plans. You know what I mean? And
You
it's
like
like,
you're inviting, like you're
and
magnetizing. Yeah.
I'm telling them that I've already given myself permission to not engage in the way they're engaging. And as soon as I
Mm-hmm.
said that, because I actually said it with two different people, they were like, huh, that's like an interesting way of doing that. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's more fun too. And it wasn't like I didn't need to get like mad or upset or feel like they were like, you know, shitting on my dream. I just was like, this is how I do things now. And you can like come along with me on this way of doing things if you want.
Right.
And both times that they, because I didn't used to do that. I used to like put up a wall, get defensive, get
Sure.
angry, get
Yeah.
mad. And I just like, when you can kind of call out what you're doing, what you're seeing, and that it's like not fully formed, and that's okay for me. Like I'm like, it's fine for me that I don't fully know how to do it, but I figured things out before in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel good about my ability to do that. So,
Mm-hmm. I
I
love
don't know.
that.
I just think that that's like a really good thing to kind of like take with you too. So you just
Yeah.
call that shit out.
Yeah. Yes. You know what? Like, as I'm like thinking about like ideas and people coming to me with ideas, like, good grief, like talk about like crazy ideas. Having your kids, like kids are full of ideas, like so many ideas. And this is actually, it's been such a fun practice for me because like, I don't know, I just remember really confronting and having to address the whatever part of me that wanted to just say no because it didn't make sense or because I didn't think it was important, or just like it was like a regurgitation of like how I was parented, right? Just like no's. It was no all the time.
No,
And to the
no.
point of like, don't even ask. Like, we're never even gonna ask because I know the answer. But I remember I started asking myself, like, why? Why is it a no? Like
Yeah.
my kid coming to me being like, I want to like color my hands blue with this marker, and just being like,
No.
okay, like asking my like being like addressing whatever, like, okay, my concern is that you're going to get the marker on things and whatnot, and but then just being like, okay, do that, why don't you go sit in the tub and do that? And then like we'll wash your hands after, because it doesn't, and I think I've learned that so much from my kids because they have so many ideas, and I can tell when their ideas are coming from like a deep urge. Like it's like, oh, I want to do this so bad. Do you remember being a
I
kid and
want,
having that? Like having a
yeah.
deep urge to like, whether it was
Color
like,
your hands blue.
yes, or
Smear
it's
glue
like,
all over your hands.
yes, or whatever it is. Like, I want to try this, or I really want these pair of pants, or I really want to go here, or whatever. And having like a deep urge and having no power to execute it for the most part, right? Like, especially
It's
when
the
you're
worst.
relying on like your parents to help make those things a reality. And so I try to be real sensitive to when like the idea my kids are bringing me is coming from like a deep desire. I'm gonna desire, like an urge. And when that is happening, I'm like, okay, I see, like, oh, here, give you an example. Lila wanted to dye her hair purple. She just, and it was a
Hmm.
thing, and it was an idea that was following her because every day she asked me to dye her hair purple. And I was just like, and I was recognizing, I was like, I see that this is something that you really, really want. And we were in like this like interest, she was like about to leave on a trip. And so I was like, I think right now maybe isn't the best time to do that because you're about to go to the beach and it's going to wash out of your hair. But why don't we do it when you get back? And so it was just this like deep urge that was like following her. And we got back, dyed her hair purple. We did the whole thing. I stained my hands. It was a big ordeal, but she was so fucking happy with her purple hair. It satisfied this deep urge in her. And I could have just been like, no, like,
Yeah.
no, that's too much. You don't want purple hair. Like, that's ridiculous. And the thing is like to
Hmm.
push back on why, like, why, why not? Why not purple hair?
I'm willing
And
to,
right.
I feel
Mhm.
like I'm willing to bet that like a lot of whys as to why parents don't like do certain things is like judgment from other parents.
Yeah.
Like,
And I also think
like I feel like a purple hair with a kid is big one is like that. I don't know. That's like where my brain goes with
that's
that.
a good point.
So the only reason to say no to that is judgment.
I think a big thing that plays into it was I was never allowed to do shit like that when I was a kid. So you can't do it. Just transferring transferring how you were parented onto them. And it's not even your values. Like that's a big thing. Like, I wasn't allowed to, wear makeup or dye my hair or whatever. And I like, so I like push back against that a ton. As far as like other parents, just, I also live in Asheville. Like kids are walking around with like purple hair all the time. So it's maybe not as big a deal. No, I know.
I just, with like physical appearance stuff like that. I will say, I was always allowed to like dress myself and do like crazy things. And I think it was really like good for me because it was, I remember as a kid feeling out like I didn't have a lot of control or say in my life. It's why I always wanted to be an adult. But I was allowed to do that, and I think it was like real good for me. I don't know.
Yeah,
what would have happened?
It's so
I couldn't like dress myself.
Independence, feeling like self-actualized, like, and so I guess like the thing I'm driving at here is when anybody, a child, a friend, approaches you with an idea that you're like, what the fuck, like, and it's not making sense to you. The best thing you can do is ask questions. Like, and like, it's so easy. It's so easy to be like, no, squash it or do whatever. But if you recognize I don't really fully understand this. And I do this with my kids all the time. I'm like, what about this is so appealing to you? Can you explain to me like what about this like you want so much or whatever? And if you like ask people, help me understand like why this is so important to you. Like what's the big, what's the big idea? What's the big dream there or whatever? It just is. Yeah. Being curious.
That's how you foster.
Yeah. Default to being curious instead of being critical. It always
comes back to being curious. It always comes back to curiosity, huh?
Mm-hmm. Ask questions.
Curiosity is the best. Yeah. Curiosity and asking questions. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's where we went today. You want to be a dream crusher or you want to be a dream like
cultivator? Dream tender. Cultivator. Yeah.
A dream farmer.
Dream farmer. You were like literally dream farming in your dreams.
I'm a dream farmer.
Yeah.
I'm a dream farmer. On so many levels.
So many levels.
I love that. What's our word for that? Is dream farming?
Dream farming. What do you do with an idea when it's yours or somebody else's?
Yes, there it is.
You treat it gently. Yeah.
I love you. It's been good to catch up.
Yes, I've missed this.
Me too.
So, I guess
until next time, guys.
Yeah, until next time, please check out our Patreon, www.patreon.com/innerarchaeology. We've got a bunch of like really hilarious episodes on there. Actually, we've been getting so much feedback about like, oh my God, I'm listening to this recently.
Like, because we like on the tread, wasn't one of them like I'm at the gym, like snorting, laughing,
cackling. You know what's funny is like the feedback I get from people is that we make them laugh, which like it's so funny because that's not like we're not like a comedy act, but like it just makes me so happy that like people are laughing and it's bringing like joy.
It's like relating because it's relatable, I think.
Yes. So check out more silly stuff there. And until next time.
Bye.